What if the meat in your fridge isn't dinner, but a ticking time bomb with a barcode? Federal inspectors have just pulled 6 different meats off Walmart, Costco, and Aldi shelves this October, after uncovering listeria, salmonella, E. coli, and even metal fragments hiding in sealed packages Americans trusted. Over 100 people across the country have already landed in hospitals this year from contaminated meat, some never coming home. How many more are still eating these silent killers, thinking they're safe? And if this can slip through the gates of the biggest grocery chains in the nation, what does that say about the food system meant to protect you? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today we're pulling back the plastic wrap on 6 meats that were yanked off store shelves. Don't panic yet. At the end of each section, you'll also discover safer alternatives to protect your table before the next bite betrays you. Number 1. Oscar Mayer. This October, the shelves at Walmart, Costco, and Aldi have been scrubbed clean of Oscar Mayer turkey bacon, and the silence around it is louder than a factory alarm at midnight. Federal inspectors yanked over 367,000 pounds of these vacuum-sealed slices from circulation after detecting Listeria monocytogenes lurking inside, an invisible saboteur that stalks older immune systems like a pickpocket at a crowded bus stop. The contamination traces back to a slicing plant in Kentucky, where condensation dripped from ceiling pipes like cold sweat and mold clung to vents like gray cobwebs no one dared sweep. The recall spanned every state, with packs dated from mid-July to early September, yet the announcement was tucked into Kraft Heinz's corporate site as if it were a dirty family secret. For someone on a fixed income thinking they're buying a small luxury only to discover they've brought home a biological booby trap is like finding out the clearance sale toaster also comes with a side of electrocution. And if you think this is a one-time fluke, the company's rap sheet reads like the diary of a repeat offender. This same brand once mispackaged allergen-filled cheese dogs under classic Wieners labels, triggering a recall of nearly 100,000 pounds, and had millions of pounds of turkey bacon rot before its best buy dates, turning refrigerators nationwide into little meat mortuaries. That trail of rot never really ended, just went quiet until now, when the new Listeria-triggered recall hit in July and detonated into a class-action lawsuit in Florida accusing Kraft Heinz of concealing risks and setting up refund hurdles to block consumers without receipts. It confirmed what many feared. This isn't a company caught off guard. It's a company caught red-handed. Behind the shiny ads showing cheerful breakfasts is a machine that grinds both flesh and ethics with the same dull blade. Whistleblowers told Bloomberg they were ordered to shave off moldy layers from turkey logs and reslice them as if they were giving cadavers a fresh haircut. Returned packages were allegedly slapped with new expiration labels like used car dealers rolling back odometers. USDA inspectors documented grime-slick conveyor belts, mold clustering around vents, and line speeds so frantic that older temp workers collapsed mid-shift or staggered home with shredded wrists. In one ammonia leak, 18 workers were hospitalized, without ever having been given protective gear. Even the birds fared no better. Undercover footage showed turkeys being kicked, beaten, and flung into grinders alive, a scene so grotesque inspectors abandoned the site mid-shift. That's the secret sauce in your heart-healthy turkey bacon. For older Americans trying to stretch pennies, realizing their breakfast is stitched together from disease, deceit, and human misery feels like discovering their friendly hometown butcher has been moonlighting as a Bond villain. It's betrayal wrapped in cellophane, disguised as comfort, humming a happy jingle while quietly playing Russian roulette with your body. And if you still crave bacon without the corporate side of moral rot, you can reach for brands like Applegate Naturals, Welshire, D'Artagnan, or Neiman Ranch. Companies that at least pretend to treat both workers and animals like living beings instead of spare parts. Choosing differently won't undo the damage Oscar Mayer has done, but it might keep your breakfast from feeling like a loaded gun pointed at your plate. Number 2. Marketside. Marketside prowls. Walmart's chilled aisles dressed up like the wholesome hometown butcher. Cheerful labels, tidy trays, that smug farm-fresh grin. Yet behind the glass lies a production line that makes horror films look hygienic. These chicken fettuccine Alfredo meals, churned out by Fresh Realm for Walmart under the Marketside label, were pulled this summer after Listeria monocytogenes traced its greasy fingerprints across their supply chain. 17 Americans were confirmed infected across 13 states, 16 of them hospitalized, 3 buried and 1 unborn, life lost. A death toll hidden in plastic trays meant to serve comfort. The bacteria didn't just show up out of nowhere. Federal investigators revealed that the same strain had already been lurking in a fresh realm facility since March, like a loaded gun left on the counter while dinner was being plated. The company swore those early contaminated lots never reached shelves, but the bodies say otherwise. In the recall notice, it was buried so deep on corporate sites you'd think it was an embarrassing love letter, not a public health emergency, while older shoppers on fixed incomes kept dropping those meals into their carts, thinking they were buying convenience. Not catastrophe, but the rot here runs deeper than a single batch gone bad. Whistleblowers told Food Safety News that spoiled. Shipments were routinely retrimmed, their slimy, discolored layers shaved off like giving a corpse a fresh haircut, before being resealed and shipped back out. Internal emails leaked from Fresh Realm managers show broken refrigeration units sitting dead for weeks, while staff were told to move faster so meals would get out before they smell. USDA inspectors called one Fresh Realm facility an uncontained petri dish, with blood puddling under cutting tables, knives crusted with congealed fat, and workers rinsing chicken on the same counters where raw beef was stacked like damp library books. Yet the branding kept chirping Marketside as if a sunny font could sterilize a bacterial swamp. It's the kind of cheerful deceit that makes you wonder if the marketing team moonlights as stage magicians, distracting you with the sparkle while quietly sawing your safety in half. And the moral decay seeps far beyond food safety. Reports from the Center for Investigative Reporting exposed how Fresh Realm's contract plants leaned on elderly immigrant workers hired through staffing agencies, paid cash under the table, denied benefits, then tossed aside after injuries like broken tools. Several older women said they were forced through 12-hour shifts in sub-zero rooms until their fingers turned blue, while supervisors mocked them for slowing down. The company has quietly settled at least 4 wage theft lawsuits and was fined after blocking OSHA inspectors from entering a plant where a worker lost 3 fingertips to a malfunctioning slicer. This isn't an oops culture. It's an industrial meat grinder dressed as a kitchen, chewing through both flesh and dignity to keep Walmart's shelves stocked with what looks like Sunday dinner. So when that cheery Marketside logo beams from its shrink wrap, promising warmth and family, it's really just corporate necromancy, raising rejected meat from the dead and dressing it in the drag of wholesomeness. For older Americans trying to stretch their Social Security checks, that's not just deception, it's predation. It's like buying what looks like grandma's casserole, only to bite in and realize grandma has been replaced by a malfunctioning vending machine that never washes its hands. If you want chicken that won't gamble with your life or grind down someone else's, look instead to brands like Mary's Free Range, Bell & Evans, Coleman Natural, or Heritage Foods USA, companies that at least attempt to treat both their workers and their birds as living beings instead of raw materials with expiration dates. Number 3. Cargill. Cargill struts through America's meat aisles like a polished Wall Street banker moonlighting at a county fair, grinning for the crowd while quietly sliding rotten IOUs beneath the table. This empire feeds an enormous slice of the nation's beef supply, yet its name keeps slipping into federal recall bulletins like a recurring bad dream you can't wake from. Just last year, over 16,000 pounds of Cargill ground beef were yanked from Walmart freezers after USDA inspectors uncovered that material flagged for segregation had been quietly folded back into production. The stated risk was E. coli 0157:H7, a microscopic wrecking ball that can send an older immune system spiraling toward organ failure before you can finish saying medium rare. Though no deaths were confirmed in this batch, it's hard to ignore that this same company has a resume stuffed with past carnage. Hundreds of thousands of pounds recalled for E. coli contamination, including outbreaks that hospitalized the frail and buried the unlucky. When Cargill whispers out of an abundance of caution, it lands like an arsonist bragging about replacing your curtains after torching your house. And make no mistake, this wasn't an isolated slip, but a signature move. Cargill's plants run their deboning lines at speeds that make NASCAR pit crews look leisurely, forcing workers to hack through hundreds of carcasses each hour while bathed in blood mist and surrounded by flying meat shrapnel like confetti at a corporate wake. OSHA records have logged over 1,000 severe injuries at these plants in just recent years. crushed spines, severed fingers, hands twisted into claw-shaped reminders of what steady pay can cost. Many of these workers were older hires, desperate for one last shot at a paycheck, who staggered out with wheelchairs instead of wages. Human Rights Watch described Cargill's production floors as a conveyor belt of human wreckage. And if you think that's hyperbole, try picturing the body count buried behind your burger. But the human wreckage isn't even the full picture. Their supply chain reeks of rot from end to end. Investigations tied Cargill to Brazilian beef suppliers caught using forced labor on land cleared from Amazon rainforest with chainsaws and fire. Cargill executives played the wide-eyed innocence card, pretending they didn't notice the metaphorical smoke billowing from their suppliers' boots. And closer to home, cheat dofty pre-portimoforin watchdog groups caught them falsely marketing turkey and beef products as raised without antibiotics, even as tests detected antibiotic-resistant bacteria crawling through samples like microscopic cockroaches at a Vegas buffet. It's a bait and switch so brazen it makes a rigged carnival game look honest. Even the packaging plays its part in the con. Their vacuum-sealed bricks beam from Walmart shelves like glistening red monuments to vitality, but they may as well be shrink-wrapped betrayal. This is the same company that dabbled in pink slime, lean, finely textured beef scraped from trimmings, blasted with ammonia, and slipped into ground beef without clear labeling until public outrage forced them to confess. And while the PR team waves banners of sustainability, grocery chains and even McDonald's have sued Cargill for allegedly conspiring to fix beef prices, rigging the market like a casino house that always wins while retirees gamble their grocery money. For older Americans trying to stretch their Social Security checks, buying Cargill beef is like hiring a babysitter who smiles sweetly while emptying your medicine cabinet. It feels safe until you notice the hollow eyes and blood on their shoes. They sell the illusion of comfort while manufacturing collapse, quietly draining both the workers who carve the meat and the customers who eat it. If you want to keep your dinner off the ICU's guest list, look to brands like Snake River Farms, Joyce Farms, White Oak Pastures, or Strauss Brands. Companies that at least pretend their cows aren't born on corporate spreadsheets and buried under lawsuits. Number 4. Chomps. Chomps struts onto store shelves like a swaggering cowboy in a gleaming white hat, selling itself as the sheriff of clean protein. Yet inside those plastic holsters, something far uglier has been hiding in plain sight. Earlier this year, over 29,000 pounds of its original beef stick mild snacks were yanked from retailers after federal inspectors confirmed what 2 horrified customers had already found with their teeth: shards of metal embedded like tiny landmines inside the meat. Each vacuum-sealed stick bore lot code 25016, stamped with the cheery, "Best by February 10th, 2026, as if expiration dates could scare steel out of beef. The recall was classified Class 1, the government's way of saying this could kill someone. And while no one had yet bled for it, the message was clear. Chomps had turned snacking into Russian roulette with barbed wire instead of bullets, but metal fragments are just the visible shrapnel in a much bigger implosion. Inside Fresh Realm's Idaho smokehouse plant, where Chomps is born, whistleblowers describe production floors that felt more like demolition derbies than food factories. Sticks were reported falling onto slick concrete, then tossed back into hoppers with the same gloved hands smearing raw meat across every surface. Former supervisors admitted mold-flecked beef logs were shaved, spiced, and rebatched into new runs to dodge inventory losses. The culinary equivalent of stuffing mothballs into a corpse and hoping no one asks for an open casket viewing. Speed was the only religion there, with line quotas so crushing that workers barely had time to blink, let alone wash down the stainless steel tables where grease clung like old sins. It's an assembly line built on the math of calculated risk. Even if a few customers get hurt, the profits will have cleared before the lawsuits arrive. And while the factories reek of chaos, the branding reeks of sanctimony. Chomps wraps its sticks in buzzwords like grass-fed, keto, Whole30 approved, and once even claimed carbon neutral status, until the Better Business Bureau forced them to drop every single environmental claim this February for lack of evidence. Consumer watchdogs have flagged their protein numbers too, finding some batches clocking in at barely 2/3 the protein listed on the label, puffed up with cheap binders while selling at premium prices. That means older Americans on fixed incomes are paying steakhouse prices for something nutritionally closer to beef-flavored sawdust. It's like buying a shiny new Cadillac and popping the hood to find a wheezing hamster on a rusted wheel, except the hamster's coughing and nobody greased the bearings, and the ethical aftertaste is even more rancid. Investigations have tied some of Chomps' suppliers to grim South American feedlots infamous for using child labor during slaughter seasons and forcing older workers to pull double shifts in ankle-deep blood without boots. Several lawsuits accuse those suppliers of leaving workers with infections so severe that one man lost half his foot, while Chomps insists they had no idea or spee. As if the beef fairies simply parachuted wholesome meat straight into their mixing vats, wrapped in moral purity. For older shoppers trying to cling to their health, that bright neon clean protein label might as well say, chaos in a casing. It's a betrayal wrapped in rustic fonts, a wellness costume stretched over the skeleton of a biohazard. If you want actual protein that won't gamble with your body or someone else's humanity, skip the Cowboy Act and look for brands like Vermont Smoke and Cure, Country Archer, Field Trip, or True Story Foods. Companies that at least seem to know which side of the blade their ethics are on. Number 5. Fresh and Ready Foods. Fresh and Ready Foods sits in store coolers like a polished brunch guest with perfect manners. Yet behind those tidy wrappers lurks the kind of danger that doesn't knock, it pounces. Earlier this year, the FDA traced a lethal outbreak of Listeria monocytogenes straight to their San Fernando facility, after the bacteria was found squatting on their sandwich line equipment like a silent saboteur. 86 ready-to-eat products. Everything from turkey sandwiches to pasta snack boxes were hastily pulled from Costco, hospital cafeterias, airport kiosks, and office break rooms across 4 states. 10 people ended up in hospital beds, 1 never came back. The bacteria didn't just drift in like dust. It matched, gene for gene, the strain found inside those patients, proving the sandwiches were less lunch and more loaded weapon. Yet Fresh and Ready's recall rolled out with all the urgency of a polite cough. A few press releases, no shelf signage, and a lot of corporate hoping that no one would connect their hospital wristbands to a turkey wrap. But germs are just the garnish on this poisoned platter. Former employees painted a picture of production rooms that felt more like refrigerated sweatshops than food facilities, where condensation rained from ceiling vents onto open trays of ham, and workers wiped counters with paper towels so black they looked charred. Raw and cooked meats were stacked together to save space, like storing rat poison next to grandma's heart pills because the cabinet was full. One whistleblower told NPR that when cooling units failed, managers simply falsified the digital temperature logs instead of fixing anything, cranking numbers down on the screen while the meat quietly warmed into bacterial playgrounds. This isn't occasional negligence. It's a business model built on gambling that regulators will blink before the bacteria bites. And if you peel back the plastic further, the real decay is carved into the workforce itself. Investigations by the LA Times revealed how Fresh and Ready leans on elderly migrant laborers hired through subcontractors, paid just above minimum wage, and denied even basic breaks during 12-hour shifts. One older worker described collapsing from dehydration and waking up to supervisors yelling, "Get up or get out." OSHA records show amputations from unguarded slicers, with severed fingers treated like broken machine parts, while whistleblowers were blacklisted from future temp work for speaking out. It's an operation that chews up human endurance as casually as it chews up turkey breast, wringing every ounce of life from its workers, then discarding them like spoiled ham ends. Even their branding feels like a sly insult aimed at older shoppers. Fresh and Ready sounds like something safe to grab between doctor visits, a trusted shortcut wrapped in cellophane. Yet consumer watchdogs found products relabeled and resold over 10 days past their use-by dates, meaning that deli sandwich might be older than the grandchild you're babysitting. Those cheery picnic table labels might as well show hospital beds. It's like buying a retirement plan only to discover it's just monopoly money soaked in mayonnaise. And for older Americans trying to stretch fixed incomes, trusting this brand feels less like buying lunch and more like shaking hands with someone who's hiding a knife behind their back. If you want convenience that won't gamble with your health or someone else's humanity, reach for brands like Diestel, North Country Smokehouse, Peterson's Natural Farms, or Porter Road, companies that at least act like food safety is part of the recipe instead of an optional garnish. Number 6. Fratelli Beretta / Bucetto. Fratelli Beretta and its U.S. offshoot Bucetto glide across Costco and Sam's Club aisles like aristocrats in satin capes, their charcuterie trays winking with gold-lettered labels and airbrushed glamour shots of Italy. Yet behind that Tuscan fantasy is a reality that smells less like rosemary and more like something dyed under the floorboards. Just last year, over 11,000 pounds of their charcuterie meats. Prosciutto, soppressata, dry coppa, Italian salami were ripped from shelves after state labs and USDA inspectors found salmonella. 4 I skulking inside unopened packs like tuxedoed assassins lying in wait. 104 people across 33 states were sickened, 27 landed in hospital beds, and some of the outbreak strains were resistant to multiple antibiotics, meaning for older Americans, even the miracle drugs on their nightstand might not save them. Yet the recall notice slunk quietly onto corporate websites while the trays kept glowing under store lights, like ticking biological time bombs being sold 2 for 1. And that salmonella fiasco wasn't a fluke. It was the curtain slipping on a theater of rot. FDA audits over recent years painted Beretta's New Jersey plant as a grotesque carnival of cross-contamination. Raw pork balanced over finished salami like a bacterial waterfall, condensation dripping from ceiling vents onto ready-to-eat meats, and workers ordered to just dab it off, with the same rags used to mop blood from the floor. Whistleblowers described maggots squirming in grease traps, only to be told to scoop them out and keep production moving. One former QA inspector told Bloomberg the place smelled like old pennies and fear. Poetic maybe, but also horrifyingly accurate. And because these meats are eaten straight from the pack with no cooking to kill anything lurking inside, each thin slice is essentially a casino chip placed on your immune system's roulette wheel. Behind that reek of spoiled pomp is a labor system just as rotten. Labor rights groups documented how Beretta's U.S. subcontractors rely heavily on older immigrant workers, many undocumented, lured by promises of steady wages and then trapped in 12-hour shifts without breaks, healthcare, or overtime. Several described slicing until their wrists froze into claw shapes, only to be fired without severance when they could no longer keep pace. OSHA fined the plant for repeat violations after multiple amputations from unguarded slicers, and the company allegedly pushed injured workers to sign liability waivers written in English they couldn't even read. It's less an employer than a meat cult that chews through human bodies to keep its charcuterie boards Instagram ready. And the branding? It drips with irony so thick you could glaze a ham with it. The packaging gushes about family heritage while hiding a supply chain splattered with cruelty. Beretta has been named in lawsuits for sourcing from European farms caught beating pigs with metal rods, leaving them to rot alive in their pens. Undercover photos showed workers carving chunks off still-living hogs. Images so brutal they reportedly made hardened USDA inspectors cry. For older Americans just trying to savor a little affordable luxury, learning their fancy salami comes from a conveyor belt of suffering is like finding out their favorite opera. Singer moonlights as a hitman, its betrayal sliced paper thin and garnished with rosemary. For anyone trying to stretch a fixed income, every neatly arranged Beretta tray isn't the snack. It's a Trojan horse packed with pathogens, pain, and corporate contempt for the people who keep their profits alive. It's the kind of luxury that leaves you clutching your stomach in an ER waiting room while the brand toasts its quarterly earnings somewhere in Tuscany. If you want cured meats without the side order of despair, look instead to Creminelli, La Quercia, Olympia Provisions, or Smoking Goose, brands that at least pretend their heritage includes hygiene. Before the next bite betrays you, subscribe now. Because the truth won't knock, it kicks the door down first.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of the newest and best videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.